Oh, The Incredibles. One of Pixar's most praised films by families and critics alike. The animated superhero film remains beloved for its charming characters, sharp writing, action spectacle, and for engendering ideas of Randian objectivism at an impressionable young audience. Wait, what? See, since its release in 2004, many critiques of The Incredibles have emerged arguing the film adheres to Ayn Rand's ideas of objectivism. For those who don't know, objectivism is a philosophical stream developed by author Ayn Rand, particularly in her novels The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged. The basic through line of both stories is great individuals who are beset by a mediocre society which does not appreciate said greatness and attempts to undermine it. This underscores the philosophy of objectivism, which explicitly advocates for individuals pursuing their own self-interests and foregoing altruism. So what does this have to do with The Incredibles? Well, the basic argument is that The Incredibles tells the story of supers, naturally gifted individuals who are forced by a mediocre and fearful mass to hide and suppress their gifts. This is further underscored by the film's villain, Syndrome, an ordinary and unexceptional person who strives to eliminate supers and implement a shared mediocrity.
And when everyone's super, no one will be.
On a micro level, we see the toil such suppression has on protagonist Bob Parr, the former Mr. Incredible, now in anguish as he embraces mediocrity. Bob voices his discomfort, and it isn't until he and the family embrace their natural greatness that they finally become fulfilled. The supers thus represent the ultimate Randian hero, blessed with innate greatness which allows them to rise above the mediocre masses. It's worth noting that writer-director Brad Bird has denounced any objectivist readings of The Incredibles, and that his follow-up effort, Ratatouille, explicitly denounces the notion that merit is only sequestered in a select few naturally great individuals. That all said, just because an author does not share a political perspective, or does not intend for such a message, doesn't mean said readings are without merit. So, with the release of The Incredibles 2, it's worth asking, is The Incredibles about objectivism?
No.
Though certain elements do speak to aspects of objectivism, taken as a whole, The Incredibles clearly does not embrace Rand's philosophy. A cornerstone of objectivism is the belief that self-interest should be pursued over altruism.
My work done my way. Nothing else matters to me.
A notion that The Incredibles fundamentally disagrees with. The supers may be naturally gifted individuals, but their greatness does not come from pursuing self-interest, it comes from helping others. These are people who have dedicated their lives to saving others and stopping crimes. They're superheroes after all. Now, inherent to the superhero myth are notions of the Übermensch, great individuals who put themselves above the law, and while that is indeed inherent to The Incredibles, it does not change the fact that the characters still act in altruistic fashion, putting the well-being of others ahead of their own. Of course, there is a selfishness to this desire, particularly with Bob, who the film makes clear derives great personal satisfaction from his heroism, and longs for that joy when the role is denied to him. Is it possible that Bob pursues superheroism more out of a sense of self rather than for altruistic reasons?
A fire. We're close. Yeah, baby!
We're gonna get caught.
Woohoo!
Maybe so. But it's worth noting that Bob's interest in helping others goes beyond fame and success. Consider the scenes at the insurance office, where Bob's innate desire to help others is on full display. These efforts aren't meant to bring fortune and glory, and in fact have the opposite effect, but come from a personal drive which compels Bob to help others.
Are you saying we shouldn't help our customers?
Even if it goes against his self-interest. Yes, the dude also derives a great amount of personal satisfaction from his good deeds. But so what? There's nothing inherently objectivist about enjoying your work. If The Incredibles was truly an embrace of objectivism, Bob and other supers wouldn't be dedicating their abilities to the service of others. They'd be pursuing their own self-interests, building wealth and dominating the weaker masses. You know, come to think of it, there is a character in The Incredibles who matches this description.
I'm Syndrome, your nemesis at it!
Though often described as representing the ordinary and unexceptional man, Syndrome is anything but. The guy is a super genius who is able to build advanced weaponry well beyond what the rest of the world is capable of, while simultaneously working independent of any nation. The character also has no ethical problem subjecting his will on those he deems inferior. A line like this,
But I learned an important lesson. You can't count on anyone, especially your heroes.
Is really not too far off from Atlas Shrugged hero John Galt's declaration that he, quote, will never live for the sake of another man, nor ask another man to live for mine. I wouldn't necessarily say that Syndrome matches objectivist ideals perfectly, but he's certainly a lot closer than fucking Mr. Incredible, which is substantial given that Syndrome is, you know, The villain? But Eyebrow, you say, what about all the dialogue about society's embrace of mediocrity?
They keep creating new ways to celebrate mediocrity, but if someone is genuinely exceptional...
And Bob's feelings that his gifts are stifled by the masses. Well, yeah, all that's still there, but instead of viewing this through the prism of objectivism, it's worth considering some of the film's more overt themes: family life and midlife crisis. Bob's whole character conflict is a pretty clear metaphor for what happens when someone settles into domestic life and eventually pines for the thrills and adventures of youth. Hell, it's barely a metaphor so much as an overt midlife crisis, albeit experienced by a superhero. His conflict is less about an objectivist striving for excellence in a mediocre world, and more about a 40-year-old who wants to feel like he's 25 again. It's also important to consider Bob's arc, which is kicked off by a desire to reclaim glory and greatness, but ends with the recognition that his family is ultimately more important.
I've been a lousy father, blind to what I have, so obsessed with being undervalued that I undervalued all of you.
Dad? Shh, don't interrupt.
So caught up in the past that You are my greatest adventure, and I almost missed it.
The dude straight up says that pursuing his own glory and self-interest was a mistake that caused him to lose sight of what was really important and vows to be a more dedicated family man. All told, The Incredibles does echo some elements of objectivist philosophy, and that's worth analyzing. Accepting the whole as Randian, however, requires ignoring the several elements which refute such a reading.